welcome to One Teacher, One Scientist chat room. Our guest today is a very versatile person, from being an artist, an educator, a researcher. He's also a curator and has trained not just teachers but even children. He's a storyteller par excellence, and right now he's serving as the Assistant Curator at the National Gallery of Modern Art, NGMA, Delhi. Welcome to One Teacher, One Scientist, Argha Kamal Ganguly. And it's such a pleasure to have you here and learn about how museums can actually play such an important role in a child's learning process. Welcome, Argha. What are your thoughts on the role that museums can play in the child's learning process?
Thank you for a quick introduction, and thank you for inviting me as a speaker. I think when I was a kid, let's start from that time. My first introduction to a museum was with my father and mother. So it was Indian Museum. It started in 1814 in Kolkata, Park Street. So first time when I entered the museum, I kind of encountered it's like a ajabkar, it's like a jadukar. What can't be done in that particular museum? I still, when I kind of speak or go back to that particular time, I still have goosebumps, like huge kind of like boxes, acrylic sheet boxes, huge building. If you just see Indian Museum, it's the first museum in India. It started in Kolkata. But if I kind of say at that point of time I had a kind of dream to work in a museum, no. I gone to Fine Arts College. I had science in high school. Then I kind of took fine arts in my bachelor's education. I did my master's also in fine arts. But once I was going to college and our theory classes were happening, and with that particular time our teachers, our professors were taking classes not only inside of the university, they were taking classes in different museums in Kolkata. Slowly I started to realize what a museum can do, and today I think it's more like a living library, it's more like an archive, and any age group, it's starting from maybe toddlers who are going to maybe nursery, upper nursery, or middle school, high school, even researchers. It's more like obviously it's not an entertainment, it's also like you can relook, you can relearn, you can re-establish your beliefs through seeing the museum objects. I work in National Gallery of Modern Art right now as an assistant curator. We have senior curators, we have director general, and also the team of restorer and other people. But yes, I am also thinking like what National Gallery of Modern Art can do to us, because it's a great institution, like it's a premier institution which has a collection from 1850 onwards, means 19th century onwards till now. We also have the contemporary artists. But once students come in the particular museum, my role is like to do storytelling, as you briefed, and through that storytelling, through the guided tour, what I try to do, I try to engage different age group, and it's kind of tremendous. Like if you think about the kind of collection what we have, important artists like starting from Raja Rami Verma, Amrita Shergill, we have the collection like Nandalal Bose, a great educator, Ram Kinkar Page. So these are the treasures of Indian artists, and also the artists from 1980s. If you think about Madhuti Dawse, if you think about Nirod Majumdar, if you think about Sailoj Mukherjee, who is not in that particular collection? Even recent artists like Jitish Kallad, Subodh Gupta, Nalini Manali. So it's a huge treasure, more than 17,000 artworks. We can display even not 10% at a time. Just think about it. We create virtual galleries even in pandemic time. Our IT cell and our senior curators, they created like virtual links where we are doing this virtual program with a lot of schools, a lot of institutions and colleges. It's quite a successful program. But this particular pandemic time, even earlier, I always had a question like this huge collection, where and how I can reach the audience who are from different age groups, conversation to connect with children because they don't have a baggage. I work as an assistant curator. I have a baggage because when we go to a museum, we always think we will not touch, we will not use flashlight. And also when a group come and I introduce myself, I always say there are 5 basic points. We came to see the collection. We will read who are the artists. We will try to read about documentation. Third is restoration. We will take care of our art object. That is very important. So taking care means you are not touching, you are not creating a chaos inside a museum. Fourth is display. See how the museum is presenting the story. And it can be a science museum. It's not about modern art gallery. It can be a science museum. It can be a history museum like National Museum in Delhi. Or it can be a textile museum. But what is the display saying? How the museum is like without the storyteller. Only the objects are also saying something. So be conscious, be active with your 5 senses. And then what you're taking back from the museum comes to the point, ends with the point education. So I think any museum, any part of the world, not only in India, not only in Delhi, it can be a small museum in any corner of the state. The 5 points are very clear. Like we go to see the collection of a museum, through that we have documentation, means what time, what art is, what the art object is saying. Third is restoration, okay, how the museum is keeping that particular artwork intact. Fourth is display, how is the display process, what is the proper light, presentation, is it good, and the last is education, what you are taking back.
How do you think, like today, children are probably going to museums as a part of maybe an excursion or maybe something that the school is wanting them to do. But how do we kindle that interest in the child, that motivation, so that it becomes like a family outing? It becomes like a family activity to go to museums and learn different aspects, learn culture, connect with your roots through museums. How do you see museums reimagining or rebuilding themselves to create that space, to fill up that gap?
Yes, I should agree. There is a gap, as you say, and if you just go to, if you just kind of start to research why is this gap? Because for me, I was privileged by my parents. I was introduced to the museum first, and then in school we had excursion. Then in university, obviously, we had theory classes instead of the museum with the proper permission. So I think the challenge is education. There is a big responsibility of our mother and our parents or our family member to introduce museum, and through museum we can read history, read geography, read maths, read science, read arts. Why not? Like, why not museum become a space where it is kind of family outing space, as you kind of say, and a family outing space not for the elites, a family outing space for all.
Absolutely.
So yes, National Gallery of Modern Art, we do certain programs. We don't only work with the state government or central government or private schools. We try to reach the underprivileged kind of, I will not use like this word underprivileged, but yes, the needed kind of society where people need to have an exposure of museum. Even in Delhi, there are a lot of area where, a lot of pockets where children are not having the exposure of museum, what it is. So I try to do outreach program. Through that, I try to create an engagement. I try to say the local volunteers or the young college students take initiative, bring more students, so you can create a kind of cycle. But the beautiful exhibition is not only beautiful while you are making it. It can be beautiful and it can be more effective if you create programs with different part of the society.
Correct.
So I think a museum needs passionate people. For the morning walkers, I just opened a pop-up museum and slowly people gathered and I tried to tell a story. Being a National Gallery of Modern Art, Ministry of Culture, like if you can say a very secure space where a lot of programs you need the kind of permission. National Gallery of Modern Art did 19 museums 6 times back to back in 2019. And I was giving the walkthrough, and it was more like a dream for me because I saw a movie Night in a Museum in earlier days, but working in a museum and giving a walkthrough in the night time was entirely different. different because it was more silent outside. The sculpture garden looked different. The paintings with light looked different. So it's more like experiential. Museums should take initiative. You can sit in the lawn, you can discuss, okay, what to do, what kind of programs should be done. We have workshops, like we have summer workshops. Even if we are having an exhibition on Rabindra Bharati, with that exhibition, some workshops were planned. If we had an exhibition named Itihas with sculptures, so there was workshop aligned with that exhibition, like clay modeling workshop. So even young students, because there is a workshop, or moms or parents, they are interested to come to inside of a museum, and after the workshop, I give a tour. So there are 8 other educators or trainers who are showing them, okay, what is clay modeling and how you will deal with clay, or how you can paint. So this kind of small brief demonstration, and the young students, or even sometimes we do program for parents. And after that, I give them a museum tour, and then question and answer session happens.
How can a child dream of becoming a curator? What has been your journey, so that children understand, okay, if this is the space where I want to work, or this is the profession, this is the career that I want to take up, what can be the journey like? What are the skills that children need to develop to pursue a career in a museum or as a curator?
I think I can answer this question with an image. Like, just see what a curator do. Like, a curator collects paintings or art objects or specimen in any museum, collect it. Then there is a documentation team. So there will be researcher who are collecting, and the curator is more like a head. So he or she is more like a mother or the father of the house. Or sometimes he or she is very silent. They are observing, researching, and when they present, when they kind of accumulate things, when they amalgamate things and present it, it should be more comprehensive for any age group. A curator is also similar, like a teacher and an educator. When I meet people, it's a very simple subject. Any age group, it can be a senior citizens club, or it can be a children's group. I ask them, okay, what is the subject? They reply, same artist, Nandalal Bose, they say mother and child. I say, just see, if you have mother and child, you have the toys also surrounding. So they say yes. And then I try to connect with their home. Okay, where you live, you have some belongings. So where you live, that is actually a living museum. The space where I live, I have my shirts, I have my pants, I have my storybooks, I have some gifts from my friends, and I preserve it properly. I keep it properly. The objects which are with you, associating with you, they also tell a story about your age, about your time, about your consequences. So, if you say what is the role of a curator in a museum, I will say eye-opener. I will say a passionate person who opens and accelerates the thinking for the next generation. It's in one word, but I can't define what is the role of a museum. But obviously, socio-political condition, economic condition, geography, rereading the past, rereading the history, rereading the myth, creating a sense of accepting things, appreciating the diversity, being more plural in thinking. So these are the role, these are the kind of thing which a curator should initiate through the process of storytelling. To ask how students can imagine, how students can think about their role in a museum in future. So you can work in different sections. It's not like you have to become a curator. You can work in a fix yourself in any part of the world as a curator or any kind of profession. If you have passion, if you have dedication, if you have determination, you will become consistent and you will deliver things what you want.
True. Thank you so much, Argha, for sharing your insights. And I just hope more and more children are listening to it, and more children are understanding the need for these life skills. I think it is so important for children to develop life skills like respect, harmony, peace, and it can be and I think museums can be a place where they need it even more, because you have to really you're in a space where you are respecting your heritage. So
Yeah, I will just take this particular point, maybe I will just kind of please allow me to speak. When you just use this word heritage, about not only 200 years, I am now concerned about. When I enter the museum, I can see the artist. Even closing my eyes, I can feel okay. If you just think about painting, it started from Ambedkar, cave painting, Madhya Pradesh. You can't avoid that. That is also a visual communication. We had sound at that point of time, but if we are having festivals, if we are going for hunting, we were doing wall drawings, kind of mark making, signs and symbols. And from there, you can just move according to the time. You have Indus Valley civilization, you have Ajanta painting, which tells story, mural format, and at that point of time, huge works happen. Konark temple, or any kind of architecture, like if you just see Taj Mahal or Konark temple, if you think about Ellora, what were the kind of times where people were thinking and conceptualizing? We don't have a museum like museum at that point of time, but those were living museum and those are still living museum. If you see this particular piece of work, we call this Kawar painting. Kawar painting is a very popular form in Rajasthan. So these people, they are now going to school, they are having education, but this is a tradition more than 500 years in Rajasthan. So they are storytellers, and it's more like a comic strip today. If we are knowing Diamond Comics, we know Chacha Chaudhary, we know Tintin internationally, or Phantom. So if you just think about it, how the storytellers at that point of time, they have had great engineering. This is a wooden structure, and within the wooden structure, you can see they're telling the story of our tradition. So I can't sing the song, what they sing. You can see all the images, and so spontaneous, so colorful. And any age group, if you just present the story of Ramayana like this, if you see the Dashera just kind of happened a few days back. So you can just see in Indian tradition of painting, till 17th and 18th century, if we see miniature or manuscript painting, we always have the side faces, profile faces, and the composition sense, Rama and Lakshmana. So these are and we can slowly open the story. When I am visiting any state or any village or any city, I'm keeping my five senses on to also search for those tangible or intangible art form, and how by collecting a small piece. They have different sizes also, but I thought this particular small piece can be very useful for me even to learn what was the earlier tradition of animation film. If we are thinking animation film, if we are thinking to become a filmmaker, storyboarding is very important. So just think about our culture had this story telling or storyboarding for so many years. Even in Ajanta painting, you have an entire story, and you can see how it's kind of like. So it's just, and usually I am speaking here, but when you go to Rajasthan and meet these kind of traditional artists, they will sing a song. And it's so beautiful. Even in Bengal, because I born and brought up there, we have Patachiti artists, Patua, who sing a song and open the scroll and what they painted, and they narrate a particular theme. How to become a curator? The most important thing, you have to be humble. You have to bring yourself to zero, so you can see other people and how the history is reacting to you. So you can take more inspiration from nature. You can take more inspiration from people, and you can deliver through storytelling.
Oh, great! So brilliant. And I think folk art is something that can actually be so close to us that every child can relate to it. And sometimes we do have a problem of inclusivity in museums, because how children of the community are not able to visit museums, maybe due to lack of awareness. But with passionate curators like you and educators and storytellers like you, I'm sure that inclusivity can happen. And I just hope more and more children try and understand that becoming a curator or working in a museum is not just about doing history. It can be like anything. You just need to be a passionate person and humble enough to respect everyone's work.
Till now, the museums are not open. Like where I work, We are planning to open. We will open in some time. But even you are in house, you can access the museum collection. Museums of India. There is a portal. You can see important government museums of India through that. You can mail us if you have any questions, and we are there to serve you.
Thank you so much, Argha, for sharing your insights with us. And I just hope that museums in our country become live and dynamic learning centers, which parents and teachers can actually use to stimulate children and help them learn in a more holistic and integrated manner. Thank you so much, Argha, for sharing your insights.
Thank you.